Hello and welcome everyone to the first virtual edition of Capacity Europe. It's great to be able to connect with you all while many of us are still facing travel restrictions. You've joined the engine room, how BSS and OSS can drive workforce agility and lead to digital transformation in the future of work track. Before we get started in just a moment, I'd like to say thank you to our session sponsor, Anexu, who are making this virtual get-together a digital reality. Do stop by their booth later to say hello. Please do use the Capacity Europe virtual platform to network with fellow industry peers and visit the virtual exhibition stands throughout the event. This is our lineup of fantastic speakers for the session. Before I hand over to our moderator, Matthew Wally of ILAC's Content Strategies, a quick note that the panel will be taking questions throughout the session. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat function in Swapcard. The session will be recorded and made available on demand for 30 days in the conference room section of the platform. And now, all that remains is for me to hand over to Matthew.
Thank you, Sophia. So to start, just to kick off the panel, I want to welcome everybody. And it's very exciting to be discussing BSS and OSS in such a unique time in our industry. So to start off with, if the panelists could give a short introduction and tell us about your role and your company, just to start. So I'll start with Artur Ostrowski, Chief Commercial Officer at Enoxo. Could you just give a quick intro?
Sure. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Sophia, and pleasure to be here. My name is Artur Ostrowski. I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Enoxo. And for those of you who don't know us, we are a software integrator and software house, exclusively focusing on telecoms, predominantly on B2B and wholesale. So we work with many of the participants of this fantastic event. We work mostly with Salesforce technology, where we have built native extensions to help automation or operational visibility for marketing, sales, delivery, billing. But sometimes we go also to OSS network functions. And we are a part of a TM Forum and MEF, where we try to contribute with what we do to promote the standardization of APIs and product standards in the industry. Thank you.
Excellent. Sander, maybe you could give an introduction.
Thanks, Matthew, and also Artur. Thanks as Enoxo for sponsoring today's session. My name is Sander Barends. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Experio. We are a managed service provider specialized in cloud access, internet access globally as an underlay for software-defined wide area networks. We've been doing this since 2004. A strong focus on automation. The topic of today is very close to my heart, always as BSS integrations in order to create scalability and make it simple for our customers. We'll talk about it a little later as well. Recently, we've gone through a number of acquisitions in order to continue on our path of making it easy for our customers to find the right connectivity globally, as well as have the security and the cloud access that they need for their business.
Excellent. Johan.
Yes, Johan Malmberg, Head of IT and Engineering, Telia Carrier. Many of you surely know Telia Carrier well, since we help power global internet and connect all the clouds, for instance. My role is about digitization to make the company more efficient, but primarily make sure you customers actually trust us even more and appreciate being a customer.
Excellent. Peter.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm Peter van Bergel. I'm the CEO of AMSIX, the Amsterdam Internet Exchange. We're one of the leading global internet exchanges, and also working hard to integrate BSS and OSS. So great to be on this panel.
Excellent. And my good friend Mahesh.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Capacity, for giving me this platform. My name is Mahesh Jayashankar. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of ARC. We are a Middle East operator, a joint venture between Betelco and Do. We're looking to create a regional platform of interconnected data centers in the Middle East, connecting from Pakistan all the way to Egypt, connecting the Middle East, Dubai, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, etc. I look forward to the session. Thank you, Matthew.
Excellent. So we've got a lot of different views on OSS BSS from a lot of different backgrounds and actually different geographies. So just to start off, I don't want to dwell too much on COVID-19, but it's kind of what is influencing a lot of operations and business strategies. So maybe I could ask Sander, how do you see COVID-19 influencing operations and business strategies in 2020?
Well, let's first focus on ourselves. I think we are in a very fortunate part of the industry. I think telecommunications kind of continued, be it obviously affected by the global pandemic. But as Experio, working from home all of a sudden, even our 24/7 support desks around the world, that was the least of our problems. And we were already set up to be able to work from different locations. So in terms of the effect on our 24/7 operations, that was very little. We were already using video systems like what we're using today for our conversations between the offices as well as with our customers and vendors. So also that was more of a natural migration to simply start using that more and more. I think where the biggest impact came from is the human aspect. Working from home works, but you're going to miss that face-to-face interaction. I think this is where we see that we had to invest a lot more trying to keep the teams together and get them enthusiastic. So as Experio, we organized sessions, nothing to do with work, cooking classes, morning yoga sessions, the Friday afternoon, instead of going to the bar downstairs and have a Friday afternoon drink. We do this now virtually to get people together and to talk. So we're trying to put a lot of those type of activities together, because you're missing that human face-to-face, the short conversation at the coffee.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're prepared to pivot. From your side, Mahesh, in the Middle East, did you see any of your priorities changed in going after kind of March? Did you see kind of any priorities change or kind of refocusing in any way?
Absolutely. So COVID, for an organization like ARC, which was born late last year, early, so we were. It was a bit like an ice cold shower. So COVID was a wake up and a shock, but it also it changed one of my central kind of thinking that we'll do slow and steady. Slow and steady was not the norm. I had to do fast and heady kind of an operation. So we moved the entire planning of building our operations and our strategy out. We saw the customers' requirements for products had changed, so we had to do a lot of rethinking to completely change the way ARC was going to roll out into the market. So that was one thing. It did produce, but one of the biggest learnings that we found is that the entire organization, whether our shareholders or from people, the willingness to experiment had grown. So what we saw is whether it's customers or our shareholders, the resistance to experimentation or risk taking had reduced dramatically. So the organization was willing to try new things. If there was, or our customers who were resistant to a cloud-based product, suddenly were open to it because they understood the resilience. So I think the biggest learning for us and pleasant surprise has been the fact that the willingness to experiment has grown.
Yeah,
the other part, and I'll leave you with that, was that the people knew the knowing and doing gap has changed. So all of us knew there was some inherent problem in some of the wholesale areas, but we were not doing too much about it. And that, I think, has changed. Everybody now is knowing what the problems are and are trying to do. So whoever knows there are some areas of optimization is doing something about it. So I think that is the biggest thing that we see that COVID has done to our industry itself. So it's affected in a positive ways in some ways.
Yeah, it's interesting that appetite for experimentation is growing.
Absolutely.
Arthur, from your side, do you see that that digital transformation or telco transformation is accelerating? Is there more appetite for pushing that forward?
So it is very interesting to see the dynamics, because this is unprecedented times, right? We have never been experiencing this situation where suddenly some global trend is hitting us heavily. So what we've seen as Enexo when talking to customers, first, which is probably obvious, there was a bit of the slowdown during the first wave. So I would say second half of March, April, this is where everyone stopped, probably, focusing on moving people to remote working, making sure that they have all the tools, video conferencing and equipment to be operational. But then in May, June, we saw the interest of discussions and in the appetite for the change, for the projects has came back almost to a normal level. So many conversations started again. Even those that were stopped, we came back. But what happened in the second half of the year, after the summer break, that is actually unprecedented. We are seeing accelerated really wave of discussions. So I think what we've heard, that people are really understanding that they need to be closing the gap in their systems. This is really happening. But maybe a recent observations, really from the last couple of weeks, something that I didn't think of before. I see people from outside of industry, clever people. They worked maybe with some, not necessarily telcos, because telcos are doing good, but adjacent industries. And they have had some problems, or maybe they didn't enjoy their work because their companies were affected by COVID. And they come up with the clever ideas, and they say, okay, I will leverage on this cloud, or I don't know, virtualization or edge computing. And I have some idea. There is a lot of money on the market still. The money is cheap today, and they are able to finance their ideas. It's not even projects yet, but their ideas. And they come and ask us, can we help them with the systems? And this is interesting dynamics, because we'll see probably in 2-3 years whether this sort of a disruptive flow of a clever people with maybe no experience in telco, different way of looking at things, is that going to change the industry? Well, we see.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear kind of the positive takes. It's a lot of good positive takeaways. So moving into our more kind of our focus on BSS and OSS, the question is how BSS and OSS can drive workforce agility and lead to digital transformation. So I'm kind of interested in Peter, how does your focus on OSS and BSS fit into your kind of overall strategy?
Yeah, we were somewhat lucky that we are already on this journey for a while. We already decided internally that we needed to basically optimize our systems and look at the integration of BSS and OSS type systems. So, when COVID hit, we were able to accelerate some of that. But the way we look at it is that a lot of the work that our people do sometimes is about administration or simple repetitive tasks. So by making those more integrated and to a large extent automated, that of course would free up time for them to spend more time with customers and trying to develop more added value to those customers. But I think a second thing that we're seeing is that by actually then also hooking that up to an API, it allows our customers to directly connect to our platform and also automatically provision services. So in our case, that would be either a peering session or maybe access to a data center or any other type of connectivity service we provide. So on the one hand, it's actually providing agility to my workforce in the sense that we can redirect them to other tasks, less repetitive and more value add.
Yeah.
But actually that same thing we try and extend to our customers, to our partners, by offering that same type of automation and integration into their systems through API. So in the end, what we're aiming for is really to have almost like a no-touch quote to process, and yeah, freeing up my workforce to focus on the customer more rather than admin and mundane tasks.
Yeah, so you're kind of streamlining that interaction internally as well as and the engagement with the customer.
Absolutely, yeah. The two don't go without each other, right? So it's all, we do it for the customer in the end. So
yeah, excellent. And Johan, I'm just kind of interested in, from Telia Carrier's own experience, what has been its challenges around developing and kind of transforming its BSS and OSS?
I mean, the reason we want to do this, of course, the efficiency that we gain, and also free up admin time and put it into customer good discussions. But the challenge then is all of us that have implemented software know it's not that hard actually to implement new software, because you actually know how to do it and you can do it good. What is really hard then is to inspire friends in the business to really take advantage of the potential of that new tool, to dare to disrupt the current processes. And I'm sure that most of you that listen to this recognize that from your own companies. And if anyone can find the silver bullet, please let me know. But we try in many different ways, the inspiration, showing examples, pilots, and so on. But I mean, replacing systems is fairly simple. Changing culture is hard.
Yeah. So there's a very is it both the internal culture, or you're saying the industry-wide culture is a challenge?
We eliminated the industry-wide because we do a lot of the work ourselves. We do our own DevOps and we work with close partner friends like ENXO, but it's still the internal, because I mean, humans are humans. They're used to doing things in a certain way. They've done it for many years, and daring them to change those core systems that actually we use for producing invoices. That's not everyone gets out of bed in the morning and want that.
Yeah. and Arthur, from your side, do you see drivers that are forcing that kind of redevelopment or rethinking OSS BSS?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say there is no like one answer for all. It could be a different drivers from very sort of obvious down to ground efficiencies. We are asked by the owners to really, decrease our cost base by replacing the human work with some system work, or simply we need to replace the legacy systems, right? That could also be a very good driver for the change. But I guess it's not about that, because this is probably less exciting drivers, right? The things that excite everyone in the industry more is, I think, that two motives that push people for doing the job with the BSS OSS systems. One was already discussed here a lot, which is customer experience, right? Telco used to be an industry where if you owned the network, ultimately the customers came to you. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember those times, but this is not the case any longer, right? It's very often the speed, the reaction time, right? It's not the one who delivers the cheapest offer that wins. It's the one who delivers acceptable solution or acceptable cost level for the solution that they are delivering to customers, is the one who wins the order. And it's very difficult to do with the typical manual processes where you are running your quotation, your feasibility study, your P&L calculation for the deal and your approval. If you're running this through Excels, well, you can't really speed up that much. Adding more people will not shorten the quotation time, right? So this is one of the biggest drivers that we see for really thinking of how do I improve the customer experience. But it goes far beyond that. So customer experience, I believe, it's not only the speed of quotation, it's also becoming a good partner to work with. And that has a lot of layers. What does it mean to be a good partner? It means to be easy to work with. It means delivering the right information at the right time in a reliable way, making the good decisions, data-driven decisions, right? That decisions that make sense for me internally, but also for the customer in the long run. And all of those small things that convert to really improved customer satisfaction. And unless you have the good systems that are connected to each other and giving you the 360-degree view on what is happening with your customer, you're never really going to achieve that.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I believe is also accelerating the pace of this transformation nowadays is that we live in the world where things are not predictable, that change is becoming the only constant in our life, and flexibility needs to increase. We need to be constantly looking as the organization on sort of almost all the time repositioning ourselves in the ecosystem, trying to look for the new niches that are created either by other players, the customers, or even technology, right? So like cloud or virtualization, there is giving an impulse for those changes to happen on the market. So to me, it's either simple cost efficiencies or replacement of the systems, but even more customer experience and flexibility that are the main drivers for starting your transformation journey.
Sure. Sanders, at Experio, what are kind of the priorities in terms of outcomes with developing OSS BSS?
Well, let me tie it back to what Arthur said when he closed this conversation. It's all about the customer experience, and this is also one of our 3 main pillars that we measure our company's success on. In order to do that, and we call that then the interface experience, that one, which is either a portal or APIs that you can consume. It's about making that the consumption of all the services and the products that we can deliver to our customers, make that as easy as possible to make sure that they can select it. But at the same time, throughout the life cycle, we're in telecommunication services. Once it is installed, you have to maintain and continue to support it. And is it fit for purpose for what you have chosen it for? And you need to make that information available to your customers in an understandable way. For us to do that, it's all about the data. And I agree with Johan that implementing a new system is relatively easy because it's software. But if your data structure is not properly there in order to support what you want to show to your customers, if the process is not there in order to support the end-to-end, then it's going to get very, very tricky, and you start to create little fragments again of automation that do not really work well with each other. Automation, OSS BSS integration has always been at the heart of what we do. We've been able to deal with those thousands of partners that we have around the world because of investments in automation, rather than adding more and more people to the equation. If you look at one of our acquisitions that we did during COVID-19, that was a platform play, a company called ComSafe. The reason why that became part of Experio was in order to do exactly that. They had developed the next generation API interface that helped not just of understanding availability and cost, but being able to support a much longer part of the journey, all the way from including service delivery, assurance, and billing. And you really want to automate all of those transactional type of activities as much as possible, so that the teams can work on adding more value towards the customers, work on your partners in order to, when things go wrong, work on improvement plans. So you have to continue to invest on that to work on that customer experience, and you're going to have to measure that as well at the different touch points that you have, but B, also to create scalability. Because otherwise it's going to stagnate your growth.
Cool. Mahesh, ARC is in kind of like a build phase, and kind of, you're coming from a kind of a unique background. For what are you focused on? What has your journey been like in terms of developing your organization, your platform from the ground up?
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. I think we've been very fortunate that we've got a clean slate to build on. So one of the key things that we saw is that our end customers, the enterprise customers, their architectures are changing. Their entire way of working is changing, and that drives the transformation in our industry, actually. So we've seen that almost every enterprise in the region, we did extensive surveys and focus groups are on the cloud. They're deploying, if not 100%, but most of their workload is on the cloud now. And hence their requirement from the network is also changing. So I think we started to look at it and say, okay, we need to move away from a technology-centric to a more customer-centric play. Or telcos, we have been very traditionally a product-centric, and customers, like Arthur mentioned earlier and Sanders did, that the customers adapt around our products earlier. And now it's not the case. The customers have multiple choices. And unless our products are able to meet these kind of requirements of the customers, they would move elsewhere. The second thing that we kind of realized in our journey is that we need to move from monolithic architectures to a more micro-centric architecture. In a simple term, I think we need to have a Lego approach to products. We need to have building blocks and functionalities that customers can order and plug together to make what serves them best. So instead of having a very monolithic product sets, and so we wanted to create, I think that is the need of the hour, where customers can buy bits of functionalities or blocks that can be added to there. The second or the third thing that we were looking at is that key verticals will drive private networks, and this is, I think, a learning that this is going to come into the industry, where we will see use cases that are enabled by technology, allowing for private networks on top of the telco networks, and we need to be geared on that. And then a very futuristic example could be, let's say, autonomous cars come in, or a water and electricity company wanting to have smart meters would probably want to have a 5G network kind of geared for just them. Sure. So that's what we're trying to kind of, I think we're developing our capabilities to deliver that. And those are the kind of experiences that we're having in our transformation. Those are the learnings that we are trying to put into our building of the OSS BSS that will help us serve the next 10 years or 5 to 10 years of our journey.
Sure. We've got a question from the audience. This might be a nice one for you, Johan. Do you trust off-the-shelf BSS products or prefer in-house developed systems? What do you think?
I trust the ones that we build ourselves more, but then I don't want to spend my own smart guy's time on building a wheel again if there's a wheel I can easily pick up. But it's a trade-off. If you really need something very quickly and you can get it as is, then fine, buy it. But as some of you might know, and Arthur really knows, we have customized our Salesforce a lot to accommodate our processes, for sure.
Yeah. So what's your take, Arthur? What would you say to people who say, oh, I just want to do it in-house. I want to allocate my resource to doing this in-house?
It is always a trade-off, right? As Johan said, you need to have something that differentiates you. So if everyone buys exactly the same solution, then, well, how do you provide some unique value proposition for your customers? However, look for things that are already available, because as Johan said, reinventing the wheel, well, it's not only time consuming. It takes like 4 or 5 times to build this wheel to make it right. So don't, try to do things that are available there and that have been built to work in your individual industry for your individual use cases, but there is no way that out-of-the-box solution will work 100% from you. And that's actually not the support that we are advising to people. We want to build and deliver the core, sort of at the base ground, for building the further unique value proposition on top of it.
Excellent. And Peter, what has it been? What has been the development process like at AMP6? How have you guys approached it?
Yeah, maybe a joke to start with. These good looks are based on over 10 years of digital transformation history. So I've lived the joy and pain of it. And I must say I'm slightly more in favor of off the shelf, in the sense that there is a lot of good standard functionality, of course, available. But it is indeed about trying to set yourself apart and adding that differentiation, that value add to your customers. And the way I look at it, we look at it within OM6 is that actually when you look at the transaction typically is quite standard, right? If we look at the way OSS type systems work, or how provisioning acts, or the standards we have in networking, I think there is a lot of stuff that you can standardize and use so-called off the shelf. And the real effort should go into trying to figure out what's different about us in OM6, but that's true for every company, and how do we mold that into our proposition. So we're aiming more and more at trying to differentiate ourselves as to how we serve the customer. Right? As an internet exchange, peering is pretty much a commoditized product. So there's not a whole lot we can do about peering is peering. There's not a whole lot I can do to differentiate myself across others. But the way we interact with the customers, so how do we engage them? How is the quote process? How easy is it to do business with us? How responsive are we to their needs? Is there something we can do through our ecosystem and make available to our customers? All those things you can't buy off the shelf. So we are really pushing hard internally to try and figure out what it is that we offer as a ecosystem almost, and the customers we have on our platform, and build that into our BSS solution. So a lot of it is standard, but that's where we really try and tweak the process. And then this is always about people, process, and system. So you need to not only tweak the system, but to Johan's point, you also really need to take your users by the hand and walk them through this change of process and attitude as well. And that's much harder than configuring some process into. So that's where a lot of our time and focus goes in helping our people on that journey.
Cool. I know time is tight, but I'll ask a question about a topic that's dear to my heart, which is continual transformation. I was just saying that, Johan, do you think carriers really think about transformation in terms of creating a foundation and continually transforming their business, or are they just looking at one-off projects and solving one-off problems?
Well, unfortunately, a carrier is not one person, so there are many thoughts inside a carrier, and it would be good if they think as one. And yes, it's continuous, because the pace by which the world is changing is just speeding up. So it should be continuous changing. Otherwise, we'll all end up in the dinosaur boneyard in a few years' time, and we don't want to be there. We want to be proud of how good we are at what we do, and focus our energy on innovating new things that customers these days want. I mean, as you guys pointed out, back in the days, the customers were used to accepting whatever the telco said, because that was the standard. These days, the customers are used to getting some extras, and that's where we then spend our time in-house to develop those small extras. And that requires continuous transformations.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that we don't end up in the boneyard. I agree, 100%. Looking at just watching the clock, I'm just going to ask each one of the panelists just to give me, just to offer some advice for approaching telco transformation and developing internal systems. I want to put everybody on the spot, but where time is tight. Arthur, do you want to kick off with just some quick thought, quick advice?
Yeah. So the way I see it is that the industry is changing, and we talked about it for many reasons. But there is more change this year than it was last year or 2 years ago. Yeah. And I think that the change leads us to a new environment where the partnering will be even more important. So you have to think, what is your role in this partnering? I think the times where all you can eat type of houses is ending, and people need to specialize more. And that means that leads you to a vision, to where you want to go, that enables this continual transformation, because there is no continual transformation unless you really know where you're going. You can, point transformation, you can be fixing small issues and problems, but the continual transformation leads you somewhere. And the final word maybe from me, look for partners in this continual transformation. I seriously think it's more partnering in the industry, vertical, horizontal, and simply invite people who's done it, who can contribute to your success and work with.
Good. You can finish, Arthur.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Sanders, quickly, what's your advice?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. Yeah, so if you want to, you're going to have to transform. Let's start there. The world is changing so quickly, product, services, but also what customers want and how they want to be served. So you have to develop an environment in order to be able to continuously add value as a company, as well as being able to serve your customers. We used to have a completely bespoke environment. We're going more and more to off-the-shelf, customized towards Experio, but off-the-shelf services, because you're going to have to work with others. That is the partners that Arthur is probably referring to, whether that's partners helping you on your transformation journey or the way that you interface with your vendors and your customers through APIs or other digital interfaces. My advice is focus on your data quality. Without that being in order, you can automate all you want, but you're going to be fixing a lot manual. So that's very important. And don't try, be willing to try stuff out. You're probably not going to get it right first time. So you're going to have to go through a few rounds in order to find the best partners, the best systems in order to help you.
Right. Peter.
Yeah, I would say to some extent echo the words said. I liked what Rash said earlier, right? It's about experimenting.
Yeah.
We live in a world that is changing so rapidly that it's hard to predict. So we need to experiment and we need to fail fast. But that is to some extent contrary to what we are used to do. We all live in a telco world that had 99.999% availability. So many of the people also in my team, they are grown up and have a DNA of getting something out that is 100% reliable. And that conflicts with an experimenting, fail fast type attitude. So I would still recommend you have to experiment, fail fast, try, partner with your customers and providers. But it's a cultural challenge.
Cool. Mahesh, quickly.
Just one word, I would say flexibility. I think we need to incorporate flexibility into our approaches, our culture, make sure our systems, whether it's OSS and BSS, allows us to be flexible to customers with products and pricing, everything. So that's the motto we have at ARC also, that we want to roll out flexibility in our approach, in our products, in the systems that we deploy.
Right. Johan.
So, yeah. The short one I'll leave with you is giving up is not an option.
Absolutely.
Just to finish up, I'll hand it back to Arthur just to say the final words. We got 2 minutes just to finish off. Arthur, please.
Well, thank you very much, all the participants, all the attendees. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely, I enjoyed the conversation. So thank you, my co-panelists, for the very interesting discussion. And thank you, Matthew, for moderating the session. Please do visit our booth if you would like to learn a little bit more about Anexo and how we help carriers like yourself in this B2B and OSS transformation. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you to all the panelists for their time and dedication to this discussion, and thank you once again to Anexo for supporting Capacity Europe. This event has been part of our on-demand series, which will be available for the next 30 days. The next Future of Work session taking place is how do you know when your D&I strategy is working? Taking place at 1 p.m. BST. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the event.